being a really big Swiftie, I really want to see Taylor Swift. Probably like everyone else there, but that's one person I really want to meet before I die. My earliest memories of music were all classical music, given that my mom was a violin player and my grandparents were both violin and piano professors. There was just so much music in the house growing up, and it was always classical. And then my father really loved listening to jazz music, so I always heard that. It was kind of like a sonic blend of those two.
There will be other songs to sing, another fall, another spring.
Ella Fitzgerald was my first vocal inspiration. I always had a lower timbre, and as a little girl with a lower voice, I always felt kind of odd. And when I tried to sing the pop music of that time, it just didn't fit. Whereas when I'd sing the songs that Ella was singing, it kind of made sense.
Just a jackknife has McHeath.
I started writing quite late, actually. I think I saw myself as such a performer of music or a player of music and not necessarily a creator or a writer of music. I was singing primarily jazz and then I was playing classical music, but then I loved listening to pop music as well and songwriters, but I couldn't find a way to mix all of those together that made sense for me. Around 19 or 20, that's when I started writing. I think when I started experiencing life a little bit more and grew more confident just in myself as a person. The first song I wrote that really felt like I'd mixed all of my worlds together was the song Street by Street, which ended up being the first song I released.
It's like a game of Monopoly, except I steal back all my property.
I got rejected for the first time and I felt so deeply all these emotions, and I was just thinking, does everybody feel like this? I'm so sad. When I wrote the song first, it could have gone in one or another direction, but the way I wanted to write was to find this middle ground between that, very old and the very new. And I think with Street by Street, I did that for the first time. And I remember truly thinking, whoa, you can do this. I released the song 3 weeks into COVID, COVID lockdown. And the day I got back from school and started, isolating, I told myself, I was like, okay, I'm just going to write and post as many videos online of me singing jazz standards and see just where it takes me, almost as a practice. And for some lucky reason, I think there's a video of me playing cello and singing along to It Could Happen to You, which is a standard that kind of went viral, and I started gaining a lot of followers on social media. So I had, within those 3 weeks of putting the song into the system and have it come out, had grown a bit of an audience, which was really cool and kind of snowballed from there.
It could happen to you.
It was almost like a blur. I was just building it and recording and writing just from my bedroom. And it was cool. I think that's why I feel so connected to my fans as well, because it feels like something we all grew together. Seeing the audience for the first time was so amazing. I didn't really know what to expect, but it was really sweet, and to see the audience in person and see that they were around my age, mostly, a younger audience, and hearing them sing along to the lyrics. They sang along to every single lyric. And I remember thinking, whoa, I think something's happening here. It was really cool.
Don't you feel it to confess I loved you from the start?
I knew I wanted the album to be called Bewitched before I started writing any of the songs. I knew I wanted it to be a little bit more mature, and I wanted it to be more confident, I think. My first album was a little bit aloof. It's very, hopeless romantic. The second one, although it has elements of that, I've experienced more with love. I've matured more. I think my writing's gotten better. Some of the references I put into my music, the classical references especially, are so obvious that sometimes I get DMs or messages from my fans saying wait a minute, I was listening to Bach today and I found the beginning of everything I know about love, and I'm like, yep, you got it. And I love that. I love spreading it in. I mean, I need to do a deep dive onto the classical references in Bewitched, but there are so many. Norah was genuinely like meeting a mystical figure. You know, I've worked with so many and met so many cool artists around my age, but I see them so often on social media and stuff. Whereas Norah is somebody I've known and listened to since I was a little girl. So I was like, oh my God, you're real. And she had so much good advice to give and was just so kind, and having a conversation with her about like the differences being, you know, a young artist kind of in the jazz space now and back then, it's just been really amazing. And my life has changed so much in the past year, and things did move quite fast, and there are a lot of things I had to learn quite quickly, and it's been such a beautiful thing to get to, you know, speak to some of the artists that, you know, have shaped me, like Norah or like Sarah Bareilles as well. There's so many questions I have about like tour and how do you handle criticism and online, you know, comments and stuff like that. And yeah, I think Sarah told me, she was like, it will all blur away at one point, and she was just like, stay true to your music and don't let any comments or anything online change how you know, put your music out. And I thought that was really wonderful.
Bewitched.
It feels very, very validating, especially in the category that I am in. You know, it's all my heroes, it's all legends. So getting to be a voice in that category is just incredible. And especially with this album that I wrote at home, it's crazy. Taylor Swift was one of the first songwriters that I really, like songwriter artists that I really resonated with. Every song, while you're listening, you can visually see what's happening and it turns into a little movie. And I think that's something, though she has changed genres so many times, she's always kept true to that. It's always that Taylor Swift storytelling, that songwriting, that is the common denominator. That's one thing I really want to do in my lifetime as a musician, and it's inspired me greatly. Jazz has evolved so much, and you know, the current jazz musicians on the scene are doing so many cool things. I mean, you have like Samara Joy, who won Best New Artist at the Grammys last year. You have Domi and JD Beck, all these like amazing jazz musicians that have done their own thing off of it as well. And so I think, you know, especially with modern listeners, I think they're more versatile than ever. You know, there's so many cool things to listen to. There's so many jazz influences in hip hop and R&B and in pop music as well. The amount of times I'll hear a song, a pop song that's like, you know, really hitting the charts and everyone's like, it's so addictive, it's so good. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, it's this jazz harmony that's really amazing and, you know, really draws you in. I became the musician that I wanted growing up. You know, being a classical music kid and loving jazz music, I didn't see, you know, a singer in the pop world that I could resonate with and kind of had a similar background. So I kind of became that person. Nowadays, you know, I think after this year, I haven't stopped and asked myself which musician I want to be like very much. Now I don't really ask that anymore. I've just become that.